Mm. Okay, here we go. 76a Ayin Vav Amud Aleph. Uh, 5 lines from the bottom. So we're just learning out that the prohibition and the punishment of having relations with a daughter that comes through rape. So she's your daughter, and we learned different sources. How you know that it's prohibited? How do you know it's prohibited? So now, in the middle, we said that according to one of the opinions, one of the sources was this pasuk in Vayikra Yates about Al Techalas Bitchalas Nosa. You shouldn't profane your daughter by giving her off to have illicit relations. Abaye and Rava did not use that verse as the source. They learned that from somewhere else. So what do they do? The Gemara asks, Abaye Rava, Hayi Al Techalas Bitchalas Nosa, Mai of delay. What do Abaye and Rava do with this verse? Al Techalas Bitchalas Nosa. This, they don't use it to learn out the punishment and prohibition for having relations with one's daughter. What do they use it for? Very interesting. Rabbi Money, Zeh Hamesias Bito Lezaken. This prohibition goes on somebody who marries off his daughter to an old person. Kidetanya, as it says in the following brisa, Al Techalas Bitchalas Nosa. One should not give his daughter over to profane her. It's going to cause her to have illicit relations. So what does that mean? Rabbi Eliezer Omer, this is one who marries off his daughter to an older person. We'll explain why in a second. Rabbi Kiva Omer, Hamasha Bito Bogeris. So he waits to marry her off when she's already a Bogeris. She's already a full-fledged adult, and he's still waiting to marry her off. So Rashi explains that the common denominator in both of these scenarios, whether you're marrying her off to a much older person or you're waiting to marry her off even though she's fit to get married, both of those she's going to have let's say if she gets married to an old person, so she's going to want to have relations. She's going to have that lust to have relations, and it won't be satisfying for her with the elder person, so she's going to go find somebody else. So that's going to cause her to go and have illicit relations. Similarly, a girl who's ready to get married and you're waiting and waiting and waiting, so that's also you're attributing to her desires and potentially causing her to have illicit relations. Amar Rav Kahana, Mishum Rabbi Akiva. Rav Kahana says in the name of Rabbi Akiva, Ein lecha ani b'Yisrael. There's no such poor person in the Jewish people. Ella Rasha Arum, rather a cunning, wicked person, and Hamasha Bito Bogeres, and who waits to marry off his daughter when she is already ready to get married. So says the Gemara, it sounds like there's two things. There's the cunning, wicked person, and there's also the one who who delays the marriage of his elder daughter. So of not elder, but the daughter who's ready to get married. Says the Gemara, Atu Masha Bito Bogeres Lav Rasha Aramhu. It's not two separate things. One who delays his daughter from getting married, he's not considered a cunning Rasha. He is considered a cunning Rasha. So what are these two separate things? Amar Abaye, turning the page. Hachi Kamar, this is what it means to say. Ezu Ani Rasha Arum. Who's this poor, cunning Rasha? Zeha Masha Bito Bogeres. It's one who delays marrying off his daughter. Rashi explained it sounds like it's because of his poverty that he's doing this aveira. So I'm not exactly sure exactly, but it sounds like because he's poor, therefore he wants a daughter at home. It sounds like maybe she's helping provide an income. So it's because of his poverty that he's delaying marrying her off, even though she's ready to get married. Such a person is a cunning Rasha. Yeah. So the Amar of Kahana, Mishum Rabbi Akiva. So he says, Havi Zahir min hayotzcha lefi darko. Sounds like one should be careful from taking as his advice, lefi darko, for his benefit. Meaning, sounds like don't take advice from this person. Sorry. Right. It's just saying be careful for somebody who gives you advice when he has his own vested interest. So someone who's giving you all these reasons why his daughter shouldn't marry your son, even though she's of marriageable age. Could be he has his own vested interest he's not why he's not marrying her off, and he's covering it up with a bunch of different excuses. But in terms of the insight into people, so people don't realize this about themselves, but they often just want their own interest without even realizing they're not really objective. So be careful for one who you're discussing something and getting advice for certain things when he has his own vested interest. It's very hard to be objective. You're always, deep down inside want the best for yourself. Yeah. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Marav Hamesi is bita lezakin. So one who marries off their daughter to a old person. Now I'm not sure. I'm wondering. I mean, what's the age of an old person? It's someone who can't have children anymore. It's someone who's just generally very old. I'm not sure exactly. But one who marries off his daughter to an old person, Hamesi isha lebeno katan, or he marries off his wife to a katan, to a small child, or Hamachzer aveda legoy. You return a lost object to a guy. Okay, we'll see about I'm not sure it means a non-Jew. It means really it could be any non-Jew, not only an idol worshiper. So let's see. Allah Kasef Omer, on him the verse states that you're putting together the hungry, the satiated with the thirsty. Leman Sefos Harava Esatzmeya, a verse from the end of Devarim. Leman Sefos, you're putting together the hungry with the thirsty. Lo Yava Hashem Slachlo. Hashem's not going to desire to forgive you. So now, three cases. So the first two is about marriage between the daughter to somebody who's either much older or much younger. So there, she's the thirsty one in terms of her desire to have relations, and yeah. So yeah. So they're the hungry ones. Now, very interestingly, that the Makzer, the one who returns a lost object to a non-Jew. So the commentators explain, and I have to look it up exactly in halacha how we go about this, but the commentators explain that if it's in a place that there's a chil Hashem, for sure you return a lost object to a non-Jew. For example, the guy gives you too much money back at the cash register, right? Things like that, and he sees you're a Jew, you're visibly a Jew, right? So that if you don't do it, it could be a chil Hashem. You do it, make kiddush Hashem. But let's say not that case. In a case that there's no problem of chil Hashem here. So Rashi says you're comparing the mitzvah of returning a lost object to a Jew with a non-Jew, which you're not commanded in. There's no commandment to give back the lost object to a non-Jew. So you're equating these two mitzvahs together and showing that they're somewhat equal. And he says that's inappropriate. Now, in this case, the Jew is called the thirsty one, and the non-Jew is called the satiated one. Why? So here Rashi invokes that maybe we're talking about idol worshippers, not regular non-Jews. Rashi says that the hungry one are the idol worshippers, the satiated one are the idol worshippers, because when it comes to their God, their creator, they're satiated. They're not so hungry. But then when it comes to a Jew, Rashi has an amazing definition of your average Jew. He says here, the Jews are thirsty. For what? They're thirsty for fearing their God and to do mitzvahs. Sounds like every Jew. Every Jew deep down inside he's thirsty. He's called Smeya here. He's the thirsty one. The idol worshiper is the satiated one. But the Jew's always thirsty for more fear of God and a desire to do mitzvahs. He might not show it on the outside, but deep down inside, that's what it is. Okay, so those are the three halachas that are put together. Meisvei. Now let's ask a question. Ha'ohev esa ishto kegufo. So this is brought down, often taught to people getting married, usually to the men. So the women know this already. So ha'ohev esa ishto kegufo. You have to love your wife like yourself. When it comes to honoring your wife, you have to honor her more than yourself. How much you're going to honor your own body, your own stuff, you have to honor her more. And it's interesting that this third one gets mixed in. The hamadrich banu v'benosa b'derech yeshara, and one who educates his children in the derech yeshara, really in the straight path. Sometimes derech yeshara is referring to proper conduct, meaning good midos. So imagine that comes after the way you treat your wife. As they say, happy wife, happy life. Right? So the best thing for good children is to have good marriage. So the hamesian samach lepirka, or if you marry them, if you marry the daughters close to their age of maturity. So on you is a very positive statement. Allah Omer, now you'll know there's going to be peace in your tent. What's pakarta nafcha? Can you? But no, the verse was the end of the verse. And then after that, you're mindful of your abode. Okay, meaning in the sense that you have a certain level of awareness. Mindful of your abode, yeah. Mindful of the place you live in. Okay, and not sin. Fine. So it sounds like over here that marrying off, even though they're still small, marrying off children, even though they're small, sounds like that's fine. But we just said that if you marry off a girl to someone who's young, so that's going to be a problem. So marrying off a daughter off to a young son is a problem. But here it says if you marry off your young son, it's a good thing. So which one is it? It says or no. Samach lepirka and shiny. The boy, when he's close to his maturity stage, that's very different versus marrying her off to a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, I guess really a 9-year-old. Yeah, things like that. So, okay, fine. Now continuing about this idea of loving your surroundings. Tanu Rabbanan ha'oed es shchenov, one who loves their neighbors. Steve's getting nervous. So the mekarav es krov. Yeah, I was actually thinking. I was thinking about them actually. The mekarav es krov, of one who loves their neighbors, and who tries to mekarev, to try to bring close his relatives. So the hanose as bas achosu. Interesting. You marry the daughter of your sister. I'm assuming it's a case where she can't marry anybody. There's nobody to marry. That's a real act of kindness, right? Okay, I'll marry her. So the hamal vesela ani b'shas dochko. This is an important one. You lend money to a poor person in a time of need. B'shas dochko. So I heard a very popular Daf Yomi shirgiver ask a question, but I don't think it's correct. He says, "Is there a poor person that's not in a time of need?" And therefore, he said his own interpretation. But I don't think it's true. There is. A poor person can be someone who lives with very little, and then there's times where he has no food for today. You can have a poor person who's generally poor. He has to really calculate every cent of his and only eat 4 or 5 meals a week, but he gets through the week. And then someone who doesn't have food right now, he has nothing to eat. I don't know. To me, that was a simple interpretation. So the Allah Akasav Omer, as Tikra Hashem Yana, you're going to call out, and Hashem is going to answer you. And Rashi explains how earlier, before that verse, it's talking about relatives and neighbors, and after that it says, if you call out, then Hashem will listen. Yeah. Okay. Back to burning people. So Tanu Rabbanan. So you guys were bored already. So now we're back to the exciting parts. That's right, a hot subject. You sound like Dr. Kuttner. So in that verse it says that if you take a woman and her mother, which we know means a mother of a mother-in-law, and her daughter, meaning a mother-in-law, so it's an act of lewdness, a zima, then you're going to be burnt in fire. And then the verse says, who's going to be burnt? So the man, the eshen, and eshen. The question is, who's eshen? What's eshen? So it's a machlokas Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Shmuel, and then it's a machlokas Abai and Rava, what the machlokas is. Okay, but then don't worry, there's a Mishnah, so it's a stopping point. So Tanu Rabbanan, Oso ve'eshen, he gets burnt, and the eshen gets burnt. Who's eshen? Oso ve'es achas mehen, him and one of them. Also a little vague. Divrei Rabbi Shmuel, but the point is it's him and sounds like one lady. Rabbi Kiva Omer, meaning it's referring to 2 ladies in the beginning of the verse, right? A lady and her mother. the lady and her mother, one of them will get burnt. The other one will not. So who's that? So that's Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Kiva Omer, also, he gets burnt. Veshtehen, Eshen is referring to two. They have an argument how to understand the word Eshen, referring to one or referring to two. Now, Mai Beinai, what's the practical difference between them? So Amar Abaye, there's no practical difference. The question is just how you interpret how do you understand the interpretation of the verses. Amar Abaye Mashma'us Dorshin. They're arguing about just the interpretation of the word. Ike Beinayu. Rabbi Shmuel Savar Osov Eshen, Osov Es Achas Mehen. Rabbi Shmuel says the word Eshen means one. Shekain B'lashon Yavani Korin LaAchas Hena. Just like in Greek. In Greek, the word Achas means the word Hena is Achas. So, but the Aim Chamoso, but the mother of the mother-in-law, she's learned out of a derivation. Meaning, at the end of the day, Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva both agree that. Okay, let's see. So according to Rabbi Shmuel, the word Eshen means one of them, and which means the mother-in-law. The mother of the mother-in-law is learned out of a derivation, but they both will get the capital punishment of burning. Fine. Rabbi Akiva Savar Osov Eshen. What's Eshen mean? Osov Es Shtehen. Him and both of them. So basically, according to Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva, both the mother of the mother-in-law and the mother-in-law, there's capital punishment burning for both of them. The question is, which one is included explicitly in the Torah, and which one is derived through derivation? But they don't disagree halakhically. They both agree that these three people, the man and his mother-in-law, and the mother of the mother-in-law, if they have relations, so then they will all have the capital punishment of burning. Rabba says, no, there is a practical difference between them. The mother-in-law, after death, are you liable for having relations? Let's say better. Is there capital punishment for having relations with your mother-in-law after the wife passes away? Rabbi Shmuel Savar Chamoso La'achar Misa Bisreifa. And Rabbi Akiva says, no, Isur Ba'alma. According to Rabbi Shmuel, there is an Isser. There is an Isser from the word Eshen, even after death. And Rabbi Akiva says there isn't. It's only, it's still a violation, but there won't be capital punishment. Yeah, okay. Fine, that concludes the section of burning. Now the section of Neheragin, getting killed by the sword. I don't know if we're going from least exciting or from least to most exciting. Unclear, you decide. So the Elu Heina Neheragin, the following people, in the event that they get caught with witnesses, and they make it through the whole court system, and when they get warned, they say we're going to do it anyways. If all of those variables are checked off, so then they will get killed by the sword. Who are these people? Harotzeach, that's a classic murderer. The Anshe Ir Hanidachas, the men of the wayward city where most of them go and do idol worship. Rotzeach Shehika Esra'ehu. So now, someone who hits his friend with Eben or Barza, with either a stone or copper?
Piece of iron.
Iron, with iron, thank you. Either with a stone or iron. Fine. And now, the Mishnah is going to talk about cases, which is going to take us for a while, which is very interesting. I happened to see this yesterday in Masechta Shabbos. This came up. Something called grama, indirect. There's direct causation of death, and there's indirect causation of death. Now we're going to say you're exempt. It doesn't mean you're exempt and you're off the hook. It means the Rambam brings down. Of course, Hashem's going to take care of you, but you're not going to get. It won't be the same level as you get by regular direct killing, which is a capital punishment. But you're still going to have to own up to your actions. Not to worry. So. The kavash alav l'socha mayim, you hold somebody down under the water, o l'socha or in a fire. The eino yachol lalos misham, and you're not able to get out of there. The guy can't get out of there, umeith, and then he dies either by drowning or in a fire, chayev. Then you are chayev. However, dachbo l'socha mayim, you push him into the water, o l'socha or into the fire. V'yachol lalos misham, he could get out of there, but he doesn't. Umeith. Putter. He has a way out, but doesn't take it. I don't know. It's just, he wasn't that he could get out. If he could, then why didn't he? I don't know.
He had a heart attack.
Oh, something like that.
I think maybe could means that the Rotzach wasn't keeping him there.
Wasn't keeping him there. Okay.
So in other words, you push someone into the water. and he can't swim.
Right.
Technically, he can get up because nobody's holding him
Uh-huh.
down. But
His own death is really caused by his own self, of his lack of ability to swim or whatever. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's not direct causation by you. That's you pushing, and something else is happening. Yeah, good. Umeis, very good. Pater. Shisa boa sekelev. Sounds like you incite a dog after him. Every time my kids pass a dog, they think that this is gonna happen. They walk by a little puppy. They think shisa boa sekelev. So they're gonna either if you incite a dog after someone, or shisa boa senachash, you go and have a snake go bite someone. So then pater. So man, you incited the dog, and then the dog went and bit him, or you incited the snake, and the snake went and bit him. One that's also indirect. So heishich boas hanachash sounds like if you held the snake and you walked over to the guy, and you put the snake on the guy's hand. That's a machlokas now. So it's hard to understand why is he innocent? Not innocent. Why is he exempt? But Rabbi Yehuda says mechayiv. The chachamim potrim. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you are chayiv. That's called killing somebody. According to the chachamim, they're going to exempt you. We'll have to see why. Maybe it's because it takes a while for the guy to die from a bite. It's not instant death. I don't know. Yeah. Depends on the snake. Yeah, I'm assuming I'm talking about a deathly snake, not a one of those cute ones you bring on a magic show and they put it on the kid's neck. You know. Right. Either it's disease or it's a very like a wild dog or a dangerous dog. Yeah. Okay. Amar Shmuel. So now, when the Torah mentions in Bamidbar Lamed Hey, the 35th chapter, when it talks about killing somebody, so it says be'evin yad or be'kli eitz yad. Sounds like you're holding the stone with a yad, with like some kind of handle, or you're holding the wood with a handle. Meaning, it's interpreted to mean that it has to have a certain measurement. It has to be, if you take a pebble.
You should be able to hold it.
Right, hold it in your hand. Okay, you have to be able to grasp it. Good. Meaning that the object that is now you're using to kill somebody has to have a measurement. So a pebble, even though it might kill somebody, is not enough to kill. Now, it's interesting. You throw it very fast. What's the halacha? Good question. I don't know. Yeah, but so that the problem is though when it comes to iron, it doesn't give that measurement. So Amar Shmuel b'pnei malo nemra yad bebarzel. When it comes to holding iron, it doesn't say if to hold it in your hand. Sounds like there's not really a minimal measurement for iron. Why? Shahabarzel meimis b'kol shehu. Iron can kill even with a little stab. Iron can kill with minimal effort.
I guess they were kind of preempting, presuming bullets.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's no bullet nowadays that doesn't kill, right? Depends where it hits you. A BB, maybe a BB gun, or a paintball gun, or a laser tag gun. No, so
Laser tag's not possible.
That's not part. It's true. So the following brisa supports this. Rabbi Omer Golivi Adul if Misha Amar B'Haya Olam. It is revealed and known to the one who said, "Let the world be created." Shahabarzel Meimis B'Kolshu. Hashem knows. Obviously, Hashem knows that iron kills even with minimal effort. So lefikach, therefore, lo nisan Torah bo shir. The Torah didn't give a measurement for it. However, there's one stipulation: v'hani mili debarze mivras. If you're stabbing the person, when you stab them, then there's no minimal requirement of how big the iron has to be. However, if you were to throw iron at the guy, then the iron does have to have a minimal measurement. It's only the event where you stab the person, then there's no minimal requirement for that. However, does iron refer to any knife nowadays? What's the knife? Like iron?
Stainless steel.
I mean, iron's a form of steel, right?
Steel's a form of iron.
Steel's a form of iron.
Form of iron.
Right. So any knife would be. That's interesting. Yeah.
Plastic knife.
Right. I guess not plastic knife. Yeah.
Actually, more than plastic, you've got ceramic.
Right.
Makes a big difference if someone is coming after somebody to try to stab them with a knife. You could view them as a murderer, right? Versus coming after you with a pebble, so they might not be considered a murderer. So it might be a bad game of freestyle or something. I don't know. So fine. So the kavash alav l'sochamayim. You're holding the guy under the water. So it says the Gemara, Reisha Rebusa Kamashmalam and Sefer Rebusa Kamashmalam. Both the beginning of the Mishnah and the next part of the Mishnah both teach you a novelty. Both when you hold the guy underwater, that you're liable, and when you push him in, and when you push him in and you're exempt, both of those have a certain novelty to them. What are those novelties? You didn't push the guy. However, Keva, now that you're holding him there, there's a certain novelty there. You could have thought, listen, you didn't push the guy there. It's interesting. I mean, it's hard to hear what exactly the novelty is. No, because who cares who pushed him? Right now, you're directly holding him underwater. Why do I care what happened beforehand? But the Gemara says there's a certain novelty in that. You would have thought since you didn't push him, even though you're holding him down, you should be exempt. Maybe because it's like you're just finishing off the act. It's like two people did the act. The act of holding is not a deathly act. What is that?
Not for Shabbos.
Lifting and putting down. Yeah. Okay. You have to know exactly what.
If he just fell into the fire.
But now he's holding him.
But now,
So
and the victim was not able to escape. He doesn't say why.
you're holding him.
He just couldn't escape because he couldn't get up.
No, but the Mishnah has the kavash.
Oh,
Maybe it's line. Maybe it's a little bit earlier. The kavash means you are the one who's
right.
pressing him down. Either way, fine. So you have to know exactly what is such a novelty in that case. Some reason you would have thought that even though you're holding him down, he fell in, someone else pushed him, Reuven pushed him, Shimon held him down. You would have thought maybe Shimon would not be liable. Kamashmalan, he is liable, even though he didn't push him.
Pushed him and then he fell down.
Right, but then why is holding him down? Why would you feel holding him down is not a direct cause of death? Who cares who pushed him?
Because if nobody pushed him, he wouldn't be called down. You're not responsible for holding.
Right, I guess you did part of the action. Yeah, that's you have to say.
For actions were not sufficient. He forcibly held the victim in the water until he died or until he no longer had the strength to escape. Or his actions were not sufficient to cause the death.
Okay, so let's see.
Yeah.
Fine. So Sefer Rabusa, the end also has a novelty to it. What was the end? Afal gav the dachva, you did push him, but cave and the yochel he could get out of there. Umei's potter. You're exempt from a capital punishment. Okay. Now, how do you know? So I guess it's gonna be the question is gonna come up again.
Okay, so that's where the novelty comes actually. Because here you're saying if you push him
Right.
and he couldn't get out, you fight him.
Right.
And the other one says if you don't push him,
Well, you hold him down.
but you don't let him get out,
Okay.
then you fight.
Right.
So that's where it comes, because the first piece is Batra anyway. Pushing in,
Yeah.
once it doesn't matter, but
So what you're saying is the whole act is holding the guy down.
the act is holding him down. Yeah.
So what would you have thought of it if the Mishnah didn't say that? Push him in.
As you push him. Yeah.
Right. Pushing him sounds like the full act would have been pushing and holding. To that, the Mishnah says only holding.
He pushed him over a cliff.
Right. Well, in that case, I think that's definitely that sounds like direct. Unless the cliff is two feet down yet. So it has to be 10 tvachim. 10 tvachim was enough to kill.
There you go.
Yep. So kavash mina, what's the source that holding someone's down is considered direct cause of death? You can say the same question here. You need a pasuk to teach you that holding someone down is considered killing them. Ask the same question over here. And if you didn't have the pasuk, what would you have thought? Right? So we have the question twice over now. So apparently, yeah, holding someone down in the eyes of the Torah would have not necessarily been considered direct cause of death if not for the verse teaching us that. Amar Shmuel, Amar Kra, O be'eva l'rabos es mitzamtzem. So it says O be'eva, or with enmity, right? Talking about hitting somebody through anger. So it includes, that's coming to include even being mitzamtzem, even constraining somebody. Constraining someone down is also an act of killing. Maybe it's like this. Maybe there's active killing and there's passive, meaning preventing someone to get out is different than shooting him in the head with a bullet. You're preventing him to get out. Somehow that's different. Hitting someone, punching them and killing them, shooting them in the head is one thing, but somehow the preventing, not letting him get out, I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Fine. So needs more thought, but it's definitely interesting. Hahu gavra de mitzamatzma. Now, what happens if you do constraining, holding down? And we're gonna have a lot of these cases, and in terms of damages. So traveling over to damages for a second. So not killing, but damages. So hahu gavra. There was a certain person. De mitzamatzma the chiyusa the chavre. He went and he constrained the animal of his friend bishimsha in the heat of the sun. If you've ever been in Israel in the summertime between 12 and 2, it is boiling, right? So you hold the animal down in the sun, animal dies. So what's the halacha? Ravina mechayev, you have to pay. You're liable. So this idea of direct and indirect doesn't only come up by killing somebody. Killing, damaging, hilcha Shabbos, it comes up a lot of places. Rav Acha bar Rav Potter. Rav Acha bar Rav says you're Potter, you're exempt. Says the Gemara, Ravina Mechayev. Why? Kal v'chomer. So it's gonna be a kal v'chomer. Uma rotzeh, just like a murderer. Shelo asaba shogeg kemezid v'ones kerotzon chayev. So a rotzeach, where the Torah does not make the same laws, whether he does it on purpose or inadvertently, or he does it willingly or unavoidably. Those are all four different categories of really three different categories of when you have to pay. And yet, right, if you do it an unavoidable accident happens and you end up killing somebody, then you're gonna have different laws than when you shoot the guy in the head on purpose, right? And yet, when you constrain somebody, you're still chayiv, you're still liable. So chayiv bo'as hamitzamtzim. Going on to the next page. Nizakin, when it comes to damaging, there you are liable. That's the Mishnah. Adam muad la'olam, a person's liable always. Inadvertently, advertently, willingly, not willingly, you're always liable for damages. Nizakin sha'asaben shaga kemezid. Inadvertent is just like advertently, you're liable for both the ones kerotzim, right? The guy is sleeping and by accident knocks over someone else's lamp or something. So you're also liable. Eino din shechayev b'henes hamitzamtzim. Shouldn't you be liable for constraining somebody? I guess here there's no problem of ein onshim in the din, right? You can't derive punishment through logic that we kept asking the last week. Here we're deriving that you're liable to pay. That's interesting. Okay. Rav Acha, okay, so that's why you're chayav. That's why you're liable. Rav Acha bar Rav Poter. He says you are exempt. Okay. Amar Rav Mesharshia, my time of the Abba, the Poter. Why are you exempt? So it's going to sound like really you should be liable, but this verse teaches you that you're going to be exempt. What's the verse? Amar Kra. By death it says, Mos yumas hamake rotzeachu, berotzeachu de mechayiv lon mitzamtzem, but benizaken lo chayiv lo mitzamtzem. Sounds like specifically by constraining somebody, the Torah only special pasuk teaches you that only by death are you liable for constraining somebody, to constrain them, to restrain them, but by damages you would not be liable. Yeah. So by death, if you hold someone under the water and don't let them out, you get killed. If I hold the animal in the sun and don't let it get out while it's too hot, two opinions. Are you liable for damages or not? The reason why you are liable, kal v'chomer, if by death, which has a certain leniency to it, you're liable for sure by damages, which does not have that leniency, you're for sure going to be liable. The reason why you're exempt, because the Torah says only by death are you liable for constraining somebody, but you're not liable for constraining somebody when it comes to damages. Okay. Now, speaking of constraining somebody, here we go, a whole list. And all their differences is a long toast about when you say what and how it fits with everywhere else in halacha. So let's see. Amar Rava, kafta umeis b'ra'av pater. You tie somebody up and he dies from hunger. You're pater, you're exempt. You're off the hook. You're exempt from capital punishment. So you tie him up and he dies out of hunger. So when you tied him up, there was nothing here that was killing him, right? Mm-hmm. The hunger came on its own after a period of time. So Rashi says, and don't say it's similar to holding somebody underwater. There, that was right now. That's an act of death. Preventing, a guy has whatever 30 seconds of holding his breath and he dies. So here it sounds like there's a big discrepancy between when you did something and then the cause of death, which was the hunger. Right now, it was full. It was after lunch. So and then the hunger came on its own. That's what we're going to call grumma. That's where the indirect death. Yeah. V'amarava kafto b'chama umeis b'tzina umeis chayev. So that's interesting. Tying him up in the sun and he dies, or in the cold and he dies, that is called direct causation of death. Sounds like being in the heat is something which causes death. Being in the cold causes death. Being tied up when you're full and over time you get hungry, that's indirect causation. Yeah, a little bit nitty gritty, the distinctions, but yeah. Yeah, however, what if sof chamalavo, sof tina lavo, pater? What if it's not sunny now because it's 6:50 a.m., but in 4 hours it'll get sunny, or it's not cold now, but it'll get cold during nighttime. That's also pater, also indirect causation. Grama, that's going to be exempt from capital punishment. Okay, v'amar rava kafto lifnei ari pater. This is interesting, counterintuitive for a second, and then you realize it's not counterintuitive. You tie him in front of a lion, exempt. How can you be exempt? A lion is a direct cause of causation. The answer is, even if he wasn't tied up, he'd still get killed. Right? Right. So, meaning your tying up didn't add anything. Because even if you didn't tie him up, he would not be able to save himself from the lion. So therefore, it's fucking obviously in the event that, not the lion is far away, but it's right here. It's imminent. So, lifnei yetushin. What's yetushin? Mosquitoes? Naz, it is. Right. There's. Yeah. What's that? Not a mosquito. It's a cousin of a
A
mosquito.
little bug, flying bug that bites.
Like a third cousin of a mosquito.
It's probably about the same size as a fruit fly. But
Mhm.
they bite.
They bite. Sounds like they bite pretty intensely. So if you tie them up in front of these gnats, then you are chayiv. Then you are liable. Rav Ashi says no. Amar, I feel if any tushin nami pater. Why? Hani azli v'hani asu. The gnats that are here now, when you tie them up, will not be the same gnats that are here in 5 seconds from now. They come and they go. So you can't even call that direct death. Obviously, the other opinion held, I don't care about these gnats. There are gnats here. And gnats are a direct cause of death. Whether it's Jimmy the gnat or George the gnat, it doesn't matter. That's still a direct cause of causation. Those are two opinions. Okay.
Probably depends how many Georges
And Jimmys there are. That's right. That's right. Yeah, right. If there's one or two, so then that's not going to be, yeah. Okay. Itmar kafa alav gigis. So this is not talking about getting the Torah, but it's interesting that's the same language, right? By getting the Torah, Hashem says he held the mountain over us like a vat. However, in this case, is you're putting a physical vat over somebody, and Rash says that you can't breathe. You're suffocating somebody. You're putting something over his head, and he's not able to get out, and you're losing, and you're and he has no air to get out. It's just the same exact language that comes up by Purim when we receive the Torah again. That's the Gemara. It says Kaflim Har Gigis. Hashem put. So Steve's right. It always comes up at that time. Anyways, Kaflim Gigis Upara Olav Mazivas. That's one. Either you suffocated the guy or you removed. This is really you really hate the guy. You remove like the ceiling basically from him, the maziva, the covering of the ceiling. I think it means must be the layer that's Sorry, my computer. Yeah. What don't you understand? He would have died anyways. What did you do?
Sure.
No, in the case that you could be sure. No, of course. If you can't be sure, then for sure you're liable. In the event that it's right there and you tie him up, that's yeah. Any case you're not sure, so then you are responsible. Any case that you are sure, then it's gonna happen anyways. It's inevitable. Okay, so you're either suffocated the guy or you took off his roof. So two opinions, either you're chayiv or you're putter. Now who said what? To time the Rav, the Hudamar Putter, say that Rav is the one who said he's exempt. Why Damar Rav kapta umeis Rav Putter? If you tie someone up and he dies out of hunger, you are exempt. So therefore, here also, you tie him up, or you put the vat over him. Right now, putting a vat over someone's not a direct cause of death. Over time, he's going to lose air. That should be the same thing. Says no Adarabah, this time there be Zeira who the Amar Putter. Say Rabbi Zeira is the one who says you're exempt, and not Rava. Why? Rabbi Zeira ha'iman the aile lechavre, the base of the shisha. You brought it up into a marble house. I guess marble is better for it. Has less insulation, is more insulation. Easier to suffocate in a marble house. Yeah, it sounds like, is that true? Yes. A marble house means what? All the walls are surrounded by marble?
Yeah.
I just think of like the counters are marble or the floor is marble. Okay, so and then what happens? You're in this house, and now the adek le shraga, and you light a fire. Now, what happened to you? How did you get out? Because you ran away, and then I guess when the fire's there, and now the guy dies from the fumes of the fire. Says the Gemara, make an inference. Time of the adek le shraga. It's only because you lit a fire, but hadlo adek le, and you left him in the marble house, where it's going to be a cause of a lack of air. Well, there you're not going to be liable. But that's the opinion of Rabbi Zeira. So too over here should be the same thing. When you suffocate him, it should also be exempt, and that should be the opinion of Rabbi Zeira. Says the Gemara, no, Amri Hasam below shraga lo maskil havla. Without lighting the fire, then the fumes are not going to start. It's only once you light it, b'shaite. Sorry. Hasam below shraga lo maskil havla b'shaite. Hacha below shraga nami maskil havla b'shaite. Okay, so what's the difference? Over here, if you weren't to light it, it sounds like nothing's going to happen. No, just being in a marble house is not going to cause you death. Only when you light the fire. Our case of putting someone in a vat or taking off the roof, that already the fumes did start. Once you put it on, and therefore it gets stronger and stronger, and therefore you are going to be liable. So it's not really a good comparison between Reb Zeira. It sounds like in Reb Zeira's case, only once the fire starts, but once you lit the fire, are you then going to be liable? But before that, you're not going to be liable.